All right, there's the official notice. So I now call the Snoqualmie City Council meeting to order and ask the interim city clerk, please take the roll call.
Member Jeans?
Councilor Jeans. He says here.
I see him.
He's unmuted, but you can't hear him.
He can wave. Councilmember Ross?
She says, yeah, she's muted.
Yes. Councilmember Holloway?
Here.
He waved. Councilmember Mayhew?
Here.
I don't think that Councilmember Lassay has arrived. Councilmember Sundwell?
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Here.
And Mayor?
I am here, thank you. Council, can I have a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Lassay from tonight's meeting?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Lassay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented tonight?
So moved. Second.
I can't find my hand, but I want to ask to have several items taken off the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented tonight. All those in, I'm sorry. Yeah, any discussion? Councilmember Shepherd, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to take off Agenda Bill AB 2157 and AB 2156 and the warrants.
All right, any other discussion on the agenda? All right, hearing none with the changes as noted by Councilmember Shepherd. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. Okay. Moving on to public hearings, proclamations, and appointments. Right now, I have a little recognition that we want to do for some kids that stepped up and did some heroic actions, and I want to turn it over to our interim fire chief, Mike Bailey, to kick this one off.
See if we can get this technology going right. I think see everybody in the picture there. Is that working? Camera all right?
You can see you.
All right. So thank you, council member and mayor, for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Bailey. I'm currently serving as the interim fire chief. And tonight we want to recognize 3 outstanding citizens, young citizens here in Snoqualmie, for actions they did back in April. And although it did happen in April, with this recognition is long overdue. Because of COVID, we weren't quite able to bring them in yet. So now that we're able to open up a little bit, we wanted them to bring them in and recognize them in front of the council and the fire department. So before we get started, just wanted to comment, because the city is partially open, one of the requirements is that everybody from the public has to wear a mask. So that's why we have all our young friends here wearing the mask, and we're wearing masks too, just to show solidarity with it too. We want to make sure that we're safe for them, so everybody's got their masks on. So tonight, let me introduce you. I have with me, first of all, I have Miles Roundsville, his sister Lauren, and then Miles Richard over there on the edge. So let me tell you a little bit about why they're here tonight. So on April 16th of this year, in the morning, they were out playing in the park in their neighborhood up by Raven. And while they were playing, they heard some beeping noises. Now they know from when we visited their classrooms for fire prevention in October, the fire department goes out and visits the classroom up through grade 3, teaching about fire safety and fire alarm. So they knew what that smoke detector sounds like. So they were able to investigate it. And they saw that one of their neighbors' houses, there was just starting to show signs of a fire starting, and it just broken out the window of the house. So because of what they learned in class, they knew that they needed to go tell their parents right away. So they ran to go tell their parents to call 911. So it's because of those actions of quickly getting us up there, the fire department were able to arrive and were able to keep the fire to the area of origin of the house. Now, although there still was a lot of damage in the home, because of their quick actions and getting us up there so fast, we were able to confine it to that area. The homeowners weren't home. If the fire would have gone unchecked, there's a real good chance that the whole house would have been a total loss, or it could have spread through the neighboring homes or the woods behind the house. So it's because of those actions that we felt it appropriate to bring them in tonight and just say a little special thanks for what they did to help keep their community safe. So first of all, we have a couple certificates for him here. And I'm just going to read from the certificate. We'll read from Miles's first. Snoqualmie Fire Department is issuing the certificate of recognition is hereby granted to Miles for his actions on April 16th, 2021 in reporting a house fire on Raven Avenue Southeast. Miles' quick actions to notify the fire department were instrumental in preventing a complete loss of the home. So there you go. There's your certificate. Take it with your, there you go. Take it with your left hand. There we go. A little shake here. There you go. A little shake. We'll get your certificate. There you go. So we'll leave you guys to get back to your meeting. The kids are gonna go upstairs with their parents. The rest of the firefighters are gonna show them around, take them a tour on the station. And we're gonna have a little ice cream just from the firefighters to show them our appreciation for what they're able to do.
So Mike, before you leave, if I could say as the mayor of Snoqualmie, thank you for bringing these three forward to be recognized, these three fine citizens. To the three of you, I know I'm speaking on behalf of the council and all the city staff and residents of the city when I say you three are awesome. And thank you for your efforts and what you did to help keep your community safe. Greg, congratulations to all three of you.
Thank you.
Nicely done. All right, thank you.
All right.
Nice job.
All right. Also tonight, council, we have a couple of proclamations. One is proclamation regarding Hunting Bigfoot Day. Whereas the feature film Hunting Bigfoot was filmed in and around Snoqualmie and North Bend by writer and director Taylor Gooderson, and whereas Taylor Gooderson and his family are residents of Snoqualmie, and whereas Hunting Bigfoot will captivate viewers worldwide with scenes that emphasize the natural beauty and history of the Snoqualmie Valley, and whereas the Hunting Bigfoot theatrical debut will be at the historic North Bend Theater on August 6th, 2021. Buy your tickets now. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Matthew R. Larson, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, Washington, do hereby proclaim Friday, August 6th, 2021 as Hunting Bigfoot Day and call upon Snoqualmie residents to join in the celebration and to see the movie. Thank you. And then secondly, it was a nice correspondence of the date here. Whereas on July 26th, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act, otherwise known as the ADA, to ensure the civil rights of people with disabilities, establishing a clear and comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities. And for the sake of time, we'll just say, and therefore be it resolved that I, Matthew R. Larson, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do hereby proclaim Monday, July 26, 2021 as National Disability Independence Day in the City of Snoqualmie. And the full proclamation, of course, is posted online for anyone to procure or get a copy of. So with that, we will move on to citizens' comments. So I see we have several citizens joining us tonight. For those of you that are new, a couple of protocols beforehand. Down in the center of your screen, there should be a little green raise hand button that you can, on the menu, that you can click on if you want to make a comment at this time. Before we begin, a few ground rules. One, Snoqualmie citizens who are not present have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, we have to restrict comments to 3 minutes each for those that do attend the meeting. Second, please wait to be recognized and state your name and address for the record. Third, direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Fourth, please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. The council will quietly and respectfully listen to your concerns. And last, please respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. So with that, is there anyone who would like to speak at this time? And again, I would encourage you just to do the raise hand feature, and then we can turn on your microphone and make sure you have an opportunity to speak. But regardless, I thank you all for joining us tonight. All right, I don't see anybody's hands go up. Hopefully that's all working fine. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below will be enacted by one motion. Action items include minutes for the city council meeting, regular council meeting of 7/12/21. Approval of, is it Agenda Bill 2105 Resolution 1589, rejecting all bids received for the Lift Station 1 Force Main Improvements Project. Do I have a motion, Council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as stated. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on any of these items prior to action? Again, just hit that green button in the center bottom of your screen. All right, seeing no one from the public, any discussion, Council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. And as per the council rules and procedures, we will immediately take up items that have been taken off the consent agenda following the consent agenda. So with that, can I have a motion and a second to approve the warrants?
Move to approve the warrants as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the warrants as presented. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on the warrants prior to action? I don't see any member of the public raising their hand. I will turn to the chair of the committee to speak and then take any other questions. Go ahead, Chair.
Fellow council members, the listing of claims and warrants was distributed to all council members last week. That listing includes the list of all the payees and the amounts for each claim being paid, as is done at other cities in Washington. These claims are the normal routine expenses of the city, including the payroll for city employees. Any council member may ask for information about any claim they would like more information about. No council member has requested additional information about any of these claims. As a reminder, if any council member wishes to pull individual claims from the schedule for separate voting, they may do so. Voting not to approve the entire listing means the city would not pay employees or the many contractors who provide routine services such as maintenance of parks and city facilities.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shepherd.
So I'm not going to be approving the warrants because I cannot see the detail, the documents that support all of the warrants in order to know whether I have a question or not.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
No.
All right, motion is approved 5-1. Moving on to Agenda Bill 21057, Agreement for Consultant Services with Northwest Hydraulic Consultants for River Street Embankment Protection, Amendment number 4. I think this was a Parks and Public Works agenda bill. So if the chair of the,
Me?
yeah, go ahead,
Can you
Councilman.
slow down a little bit? Okay. This agenda bill provides a fourth amendment to Task Order 39 with Northwest Hydraulic Consultants. Extra out-of-scope services are necessary to complete the design of the record office revetment improvements. Extra design services include additional civil and landscape design work to address agency and travel review comments and coordination activities. Additional out-of-scope services resulted from agency comments to develop a water quality monitoring plan, coordinating underwater videography of the revetment tow into the design package, and coordinating material supplies for early procurement items. This is the final amendment to Task Order 39. Construction services will proceed under a separate task order. Move to approve agreement for consultant services with Northwest Hydraulic Consultants for River Street Embankment Protection, Amendment number 4, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 21057 as stated by Councilmember Sunwell. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to council action? I don't see anyone's hand go up, so Councilmember Shepherd, go ahead.
So I didn't vote for this when we were voting on the previous agenda bill that added $2 million. And I understand that there was some mention that we would be reimbursed by King County, but it wasn't a firm commitment that I could find for that. And so I'm a little concerned about the size of what this is going to be without knowing what our firm commitment will be from King County. The same with both 56 and 57.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
No.
All right, motion passes 5-1. Moving on to Agenda Bill 21056, Task Order Number 48, Agreement for Professional Services with Northwest Hydraulic Consultants for Record Office Revetment, Engineering Service during construction. You're muted, Councilmember Summel.
I know we're in favor of that. The city requires assistance with professional engineering and support services during construction of the record office revetment repair improvements. Anticipated services include hydraulic and civil engineering, water quality and aquatic impact monitoring, archaeologic and geotechnical consulting, and landscaping restoration monitoring activities. Task Order 48 provides for these support services during construction and is subject to full county reimbursement. Staff recommends that City Council approve Northwest Hydraulic Consultants Task Order 48, Record Office Revetment Professional Services during construction, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 21056 as stated by Councilmember Summel. Again, is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? I don't see any hands from the members of the public going up, so Councilmember Shepherd, go ahead. Or Councilmember, Chair of the Committee, Councilmember Summel, did you want to comment prior to?
Yeah, thank you. I anticipate a question coming. As it says there in the last 3 words, this will be fully reimbursed by the county.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shepherd and then Councilmember Holloway.
Again, this is the same concern that I had from the previous agenda bill. I'm concerned about the $2 million.
Councilmember Holloway.
So I do kind of would like a statement of where we stand with the county, just to answer Councilmember Shepherd's question. But I believe we have an agreement to cover the full project for the revetment office, our records office revetment. Secondary, I do have a question on the prior agenda bill related to this, that that 67K, I believe, was city funds, and there was discussion of how we were going to cover those. Was there determination of how we were going to cover that 67K? That's it for me.
All right. Bob, go ahead. Bob Sturbank.
I was just going to point out, Mayor, I believe the council approved the interlocal agreement with King County for the reimbursement at its previous meeting, the first meeting in July. Jeff Hamlin, he's still on the line, could verify that, but or the interim city clerk. But so there's no question about the agreement with the county that's already been approved by the county and by this council.
Yeah, which includes the added contingency costs, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, thank you both. Any?
Second question didn't get answered, though.
Oh, Jeff, if you could address the questions raised by Councilor Holloway or Shepherd.
Certainly. Yeah. So yes, we do have the agreement. The agreement covers an amount of with a contingency of fully 10% of the project. So we have something like $187,000 in contingency that is covered by the agreement. And I just can't imagine that we'll go over that amount. And if we do, then it's not specifically covered by the agreement, but it's I think virtually covered by the agreement, and that the flood control district is paying for this project, and we're the ones that are performing it. So
I'm not sure if I understand what the comment or what this added $2 million that Councilmember Shepherd was referring to, but if you can't, it looks like Drew's ready to jump in to maybe address that.
No, Chair, I believe that answer was question. We have an interlocal agreement covering the $2 million. My secondary question was, where is the 67K coming from? And I believe, Jeff, you're telling me that is going to come out of contingency.
yeah, well, the 67K was agreed to by the counts by this last agreement that we had with the county. So that was covered when we agreed and accepted that cost was covered already.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shepherd.
At which meeting did we approve the interlocal agreement at?
I believe that was the last one that we did.
The last council meeting.
Okay, I'll review that.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing no further hands or questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay.
No,
Motion passes 5-1. All right, moving on to the ordinances, Community Development Committee, Agenda Bill 21051, ordinance adopting the Shoreline Master Program update and accepting Department of Ecology required and recommended changes. This is only for introduction tonight. So if the chair of the committee could simply just read in the summary statement without making the motion, that would be appreciated.
The city council adopted the updated shoreline master plan on August 26, 2019, and the city transmitted the updated SMP to the Department of Ecology for review. Ecology held a public comment period from December 1 to 2019 to January 7, 2020, and received 2 comment letters. The city provided responses to the comments and worked with Ecology to refine changes to the SMP to address public and state agency concern or comments. Ecology issued conditional approval of the updated SMP on June 21st, 2021, which includes required and recommended changes. The city council must act on the conditional approval.
Do I have a second? Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a motion. Thank you. So again, this is just for introduction tonight. However, at this time, is there any members of the public that would like to speak to this item prior to possible council future action? Again, I don't see any hands go up. So council, any questions or discussion at this time prior to bringing it back at the next council meeting? Or would you like to hear any summary statements from Mark Hoffman or planning staff? Councilor Ross, go ahead.
Actually, this was out of our council committee. So the Community Development Committee approved moving the Shoreline Master Program forward to the full council for approval. Again, this is introduction, and action to be taken on August 9th. This plan is a plan for the management of shorelines within Snoqualmie. The required and recommended changes represent fine-tuning of the Shoreline Master Plan. There are no changes to overall goals and policies of the SMP, nor are there any major changes to the substantive regulatory provisions of the Shoreline Master Program. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair. Seeing no other questions or comments, then we'll move on to reports. Parks and Public Works Committee, Agenda Bill 21055, Resolution 1588, awarding a small works contract to RE Size Landscaping for the Stellar Way Urban Forestry Improvement Project.
This project will replace substandard soils in the landscaping strips along Stellar Way to allow for healthy trees with increased lifespan to avoid future infrastructure conflicts, root barrier, drainage improvements, select sidewalk replacement, and irrigation system replacement is also included as part of this project. Move to adopt Resolution 1588, awarding a small works contract to RE Sides Landscaping for the Stellar Way Urban Forestry Improvements Project, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 21055 as stated by Councilmember Sunwell. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Seeing no members of the public raise their hand. Is there any discussion or comments, questions? And first I'll offer the chair of the committee to speak to this. First.
I don't have anything to add.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Jeans. Councilmember Jeans, you may be muted. I don't see you, but I don't hear you. You know, he's unmuted, but we can't hear him. So there might be some issue with the microphone or something. Councilmember Jeans, maybe you can mute and unmute again and see if that kicks it, or.
I think he said he was good. He waved the hands.
Yeah. No, we still can't hear him. I'm sorry, Bob. Maybe Kevin offline, you could try to maybe have him dial in with a phone and then he could do video and phone or something. Sorry about that, Councilmember Jeans. All right, are there any other questions, comments on this? Councilmember Shepherd.
So I understand that this was the first street of what we were going to try to do for other streets as well. Is that right? I mean, as far as the long-term plan?
This is just the beginning of many streets that need to have a lot of complete rebuild of the soils and drainage conditions, and trees that are failing, and sidewalks that are being pushed up due to shallow soils.
Yeah.
Organic conditions, yes.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, Phil, you look like you just jumped in like you might have wanted to add anything, or other than Yahoo, let's get this done. Okay. All right. There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Agenda Bill 21059, Local Agency A&E Professional Services Negotiated Hourly Rate Consultant Agreement with OTAC Incorporated for the Town Center Phase 3 project.
Can you scroll up a little bit? There we go. Thank you. This agreement is for the engineering design services for the Town Center Phase 3 project. This project is a continuation of downtown improvements along SR 202 from Southeast Northern Street and the SR 202 bridge. Move to approve the local agency A&E Professional Services negotiated hourly rate consultant agreement with OTAC Inc. for the Town Center Phase 3 project and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
All right, I have a motion, a second to approve Agenda Bill 21059, as stated by Councilmember Sunwall. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Again, I don't see any hands going up from members of the public. Are there any questions, comments from the council? And I'll start with the chair if they want to make any statements.
I don't have anything to add.
All right, I don't see any hands up. So if there's no further discussion, oh, Councilor Mayhew, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a pretty significant contract. Well, this is a pretty significant undertaking by our city. And the appearance, it's going to be multi-million dollars. It's by the time we're done with construction. The appearance of our city, the downtown area, I think is a matter of policy and over which the council should properly have oversight. So the concern I have is that as presented right now, and by the way, let me be clear, I support this project. I think this is fantastic. It's in our 6-year CIP. This is great. But as it's presented right now, the project doesn't have any council approval over what is proposed. There are 2 significant approval process benchmarks at a 30% design level and again at a 60% design level. In fact, I think those go out for other approvals, but neither of them require any approval process that involves the council. There are some optional council briefings, but no requirement for council approval. I think on something of this significance, I think that the council ought to retain some approval oversight. I think we ought to add to this arrangement that at the 30% or 60% levels, or if that's not an adequate understanding, maybe just at the 60% level. But I'd like to see the council approve the plans at some point along the way so that we don't end up with $800,000 spent on something that maybe the council has significant reservations about it. So I'd like to see us add that to this. And so I'd like to make a motion. I move to return this agenda bill to committee to have the proposal modified to add council approval at certain design stages as determined by the committee and the administration.
I'm a little confused. I mean, we always have purview over money spent.
Not in this one. When you read it, you'll see that once we approve this, if we were to approve it today, that's it. We never see it again. We never have an approval over, sorry, to be clear, over the design phase. There's no construction money being talked about today, but it is an over $800,000 design contract, and there's no further council approval. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to, we needed administration, we needed professionals to do most of it, but I think this is an oversight. I don't think anyone meant to cut this out, and I think we ought to have the council weigh in from an oversight and approval. I think this is a matter of policy. It's a big impact on our city.
Councilor Mayhew, this is a little maybe in a gray area here. I don't want to step on the motion, but I'm not hearing a second. And I could see it dies for lack of a second, but perhaps I could offer a response to see if maybe that would either elicit a second or maybe you go, hey, I'm okay, let's pull the motion back. If that's okay.
I'll second.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Shepherd, you seconded?
Yep.
Okay. All right. There's been a motion, a second on the baby dinosaur as stated by Councilmember Mayhew. So we're now going to debate that issue. I can wait until after further comments. I see now Peggy, Councilmember Shepherd and Councilmember Mayhew's hands are up. So Councilmember Shepherd, go ahead.
Yeah, I looked at some these documents in the agenda bill, and I didn't see where we were opening ourselves up to the community for them to have a say on what's going on. It looks like this is a lot of work that's being done. And I think that it's a great idea. I don't know that this is what we're facing as far as the economy. I'm thinking that this is maybe one that we may want to put to the side until we know where we're headed financially.
All right.
Mayor, can I step in here?
Yeah, I feel compelled to jump in. Let me jump in and offer some perspective on Councilor Mayhew. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would like very much, Mayor, to hear from you on those comments that you were just about, that you're proposing to give. And I would also just make the observation that all but 13% of this money, I believe, is coming from a federal grant. And this is just a fantastic thing that a lot of work has gone into to get that through the PSRC. And I thank you for everyone who's been involved in getting that. So I think that's something we should be mindful of. And then the second thing I would say is I did observe, it's quite extensive actually in the documentation about citizen, or rather I should say public input from the public. There's an inclusion of I believe it's up to a 15-member committee, multiple presentations. So there is quite a bit built into this with public input. My concern is solely with respect to council oversight of this. But Mayor, I'd love to hear your comments.
Yeah, Jeff, let me give it a whack at it, and you can come in behind me and do cleanup if I drop anything. So this is one I struggled mightily with, Councilmember, as we were going, particularly as we hit some major fiscal challenges, and we were looking at really cutting capital ones. When I took a look at this project, this one, there was a significant portion of this to me that was really meat and potatoes, really high value improvements. There was a good bit of it, and half of it or more, that felt like it was mission creep, where suddenly the downtown revitalization creeped all the way up to the 202 bridge somehow. But by that time it was a bit late. We'd already secured the grant of $800,000. So we had two choices. I could, because I basically told the staff, look, I think this is one we're going to have to just cut. It's just too much, too big, as you're describing. I had the exact same concerns, but we can't go back and sort of modify the grant terms, short of turning down and rejecting the entire grant and then resubmitting for a different scope in the grant. It was kind of a pickle of, well, do we give up $800,000? Now, is there some value into the design work going out to the bridge? Yeah, absolutely. Whether we would be successful in finding additional grant monies to pay for that or prioritize that in a time frame is more dubious. So my thought was, look, we're committing a little more than like $110,000 of city funds to a pretty significant design project. Once this is done and we fulfilled the terms of the grant and execute this design, at that point then we can cut it up into different portions and then go back to the council and say, which portions do you think, or that the administration recommends, are high value portions to focus on for actually pursuing capital construction and capital grants. I mean, if someone wants to give us several $1 million to do the whole thing, fine. But we think we'd be more successful to kind of cut that into some different pieces, but at least the rest of the pieces can sit on the shelf and be shovel ready for when grant opportunities come forward. You can pull those off and pursue those monies. And so that's why I'm comfortable with this. So as much as it is a big project and it's a lot in scope, it's detailed, as you said, in terms of public involvement and all that, but it's really $109,000 we're talking about. And there's no commitment we're expecting from the council right now that out of the back end of this design, then we're going to start, vigorously pursuing several $1 million of capital construction connected with that full design. Does that make sense or help?
It helps very much, Mayor. I wonder, within the context of what you just said, do you think it would be problematic if the council had one or two check-in points where they sort of green lighted continuing on, or what's your thought on that?
It seems like it might be overly onerous, given that our commitment is only about $110,000. But and if we'll do what the council wishes. But it seems, and I'm not sure how that would change versus the public input that we would have. Jeff, I don't know if you want to add something to that or help.
I would. I'd like to. So It's funny that you mentioned that because I didn't really realize that I didn't have any council, checkpoints or milestones in there. But we intended, and I actually have in the scope, time and budget expended on presenting to council at 30 and at 60% to make you guys aware of what it is that we're doing. So there is a very extensive public process which will be involved in this. So we want to get input from the community. And so you'll obviously be involved with that aspect of it. We'll make you aware and you'll be engaged in that whole process. So you'll know exactly what we're doing. And then at 30%, we have a time to kind of do a project review with you. Essentially, this is where we're at. This is what we spent. This is what we have to do. 30% is a really good time to do that because there are several major decisions that are made at 30%. Then 60% is also the time to present because at that point, we are ready to move forward with final design. And that's, we are 85, 90% through the project by the time we get to 60%, believe it or not. So that is actually a really good time. And that was my intention all along, to keep everybody aware of where we were at. So if you need me to codify it and put it in there somehow, I can do that. But that was my intent all along.
Great, thank you, Jeff. I should have had you lead better. So Councilor Mayhew, perhaps there's two choices. One is we could, follow the motion you're saying, but if this is time sensitive and 2 weeks of delay is sort of problematic, maybe a simple motion to add that requirement of a 3 month and 6 month or whatever that was, check-in with the council would be sufficient to just keep it moving.
May I change my motion accordingly, or?
Well,
what's the
Councilor
procedure?
Stonewall had their hands up patiently. You want me to get them first? Okay, let me do that and then we'll come back because they've heard all that too. Councilor Sunwall and then Councilor Jeans.
Yeah, I understand first of all, I love, I was gonna say President Mayhew's support, Mayor Pro Tem's support. And I'm not surprised, but I think it's great. I guess I would say I have enough trust in just having been doing this for like 4 years now. There's no chance. There is no chance we're gonna wake up one day and this is done and we had no input. It's simply not going to happen. And my fear with emotion is, what do you codify? Like, is it a certain amount of progress? Is it a certain amount of time? Is it before paving? And I also want to respect us trying to stay out of the weeds of stuff. And so if there's a reasonable amount of confidence amongst the 7 of us that there's just no chance anything significant is going to happen without us having a discussion about it, at least at a committee level, and if we feel like that's important, we can bubble it up, then I would just propose we leave it as. In 4 years, I haven't seen anything where something like this is just sort of snuck when we wake up, it's done. I mean, there's going to be, just because of how collaborative we like to be, there's just no chance that's not going to happen.
All right, thank you. And I want to say I missed it. I said 30 and 60 days. I meant 30% and 60% of design. I think you all knew that. Councilor Jeans, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I got audio. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so that's good. Give me thanks. I'm good. Nothing further.
All right, now we can't hear you. You hung the phone up. I'm kidding. All right, Councilor Shepherd.
Okay, so I know that we've missed some public engagement times when we were supposed to do public engagement, and I would really like to have public engagement before this starts out. What do we already have? I'd like to have a meeting where the community is going to be able to come and see the illustrations in a room, and they can, or online, and be able to comment, and other people can see what others are commenting.
Yeah, well, as Jeff said, that is embedded in the process. What's not is the check-in with the council. And as Jeff said, that was fully his intent, as we've done with a lot of other big design projects. I am completely comfortable with just Councilor Mayhew and Councilor Shepherd, if you're okay with to withdraw the amended motion to replace that with just a motion to add language that would require a check-in at 30 and 60% for this project, if that would be sufficient.
Yeah, so Mayor, I'd like to withdraw my motion if I can, and make an alternative motion of similar to what you just said.
Okay, Councilmember Shepherd, you okay with withdrawing your second?
Yeah, but I would like to say that I would like to see a public participation plan for this.
Okay. Councilor Mayhew, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could just say there actually is, as part of this contract, a requirement for a public, the contractor is required to have a public engagement plan. That's in the contract that we're looking at. So I couldn't agree more on the importance of that. And it's well laid out, and there's a plan required, consultations, hearings, or not hearings, public engagement opportunities. So I also thought that was important, and I did see it in there. So I'd like to move that the motion be amended to say with language added to require council approval at the 30% and again at the 60% completion stages.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second as stated by Councilor Mayhew. Any further discussion on the motion to amend? Councilor Sunwell.
The word approval is, I'm a little stuck on that because we get to 60%. What are we gonna do? Say, never mind? I mean, I think what Councilmember Mayhew is asking is just, let's require a check-in. Maybe I'm getting hung up on the word approval, but I don't imagine a scenario we get 30 or 60% down the road and then we're just gonna go, I don't even know how that would work in terms of returning money that's not ours. I don't know how that would work.
Councilmember Holloway.
So if I may propose a friendly amendment to the motion that after phase 3 project in the recommended action, we say with council review at 30 and 60% design complete.
Councilor Mayhew.
Second.
Wow, I think I have a baby dinosaur now. It's getting tricky.
It's in utero.
All right. I guess unless someone protests the process here, we're discussing now Councilmember Holloway's amendment to the amendment. Councilmember Mayhew, I'll just turn it back to you.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to do the same thing that Councilmember Sunwell and Councilmember Holloway are trying to do. I think we're a little confused on this word, or what the heck do we mean by this word? First, I just want to make this point. Councilmember Sunwell pointed out that this is kind of how we do things, this is how our staff works with us. I couldn't agree more. This is a sort of, to also quote Councilmember Sunwell, I think it's good for us to have good hygiene, I think is what he's referred to it in past as. And I think there's just a right way to do things. Clearly, that's the intention here. So I'm really just looking to add into this without delaying this, sending it back to committee, just add something in that requires that they come back. And I guess the reason I use the word approval is not that we not do the project, but that we'd say, no, you're going left and you should have gone right. Or, we want you to go right. So it's more about, council input. And so that's why I thought the word approval is right. I'm not really sure what review. I wouldn't, if that's what we all settle on, I think we all know what we're trying to achieve. And clearly, Mr. Hamlin intends to do that.
I withdraw my angst over the word approval.
All right. We still have a motion on Councilmember Holloway's that we're debating right now. Bob Sturbank.
I just wanted to flag for the council's attention, the language in the current scope talks about or contemplates the consultant preparing a design memoranda at each phase and providing the draft memoranda to the city for review, and that there's language that says that they'll incorporate city review comments in the final memoranda, which then provides the basis for the next phase of design. So maybe that helps you think about the approved versus how that works. It sounds like what council members are asking for is that council review those briefings to council that are already contemplated, that your feedback will be incorporated in the review that goes to the consultant at each of those phases, and that their final design memorandum will reflect this.
So point of information, does the motion made by Councilmember Holloway, he used the word review, would that would that accomplish, or do we need some more specific language?
I think it accomplishes what everybody's saying. I'm frankly comfortable with it either way, but the review language seems to be more in line with what Councilmember Sunwall's point to what has been past practice. But I could accept either way. Councilmember Shepherd.
Can we display where it shows where public participation is spelled out?
That's
Point
not-
of order, I'm happy to talk about that, but that's not relevant to the mini dinosaur.
Sustained. All right. We'll ask the members to please keep their comments relevant or germane to the motion on the table. All right. If there's no further discussion on the motion, then Bob, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you forgot to put it down, Bob Sturbank.
So I'm sorry, I did forget to put it down, but if people are following along on the scope, it's pages 6 and 7. In the scope of services is where the discussion of the public outreach is. Not relevant to the motion, but if anyone wants to.
You're out of order. I'll ask the city attorney to keep it germane to the motion on the table. Thank you, Bob. All right. Councilmember Shepherd, you still have your hand up. All right, thank you. All right, so if there's no further discussion on this, we're voting on the motion that Councilmember Holloway made with the review language. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay.
No.
All right, motion is approved 5-1. Going back to now to Councilmember Mayhew's amendment, it seems like perhaps the motion on Councilmember Holloway preempts that, or it seems like you're comfortable to go ahead and let that drop anyway. Okay.
It's my understanding he modified the little dinosaur modified my dinosaur, and that therefore that's what we approved.
Well,
For your dinosaur diet.
Chair, my intent was, we started out with, can we kind of sort of put some words in that do this?
Yeah.
My intent was to specify which words go in, and that is after project comma goes in with council review at 60 and 90% design complete.
Yeah, very clear. That'll be helpful to Nicole. All right, thank you. So now we're back to the main motion with the amended language inserted into the agenda bill. Is there any further discussion? Bob Sturbank, do you have another comment or question?
No, Mayor, sorry, I will lower the hand.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Shepherd.
So can we now display 6 and 7?
I'm not sure what it's going to take to convince you that it's in there, but okay. You want it displayed on the screen?
Yes, please.
Does the staff know where to find that quickly? What section was it again, Stop, Bob?
Wrong document.
It's in the scope of services, which is the
Which number?
is
Second to
08,
the bottom. Yeah.
second to the bottom,
PC3 final scope. Okay. What page?
pages 6 and 7.
Six and 7. You have,
That's 5, I think.
One more.
well, he's on 6.
Starts right there with the underscored language and then continues on to 7.
Which section? Give us a 3.2.4, whatever. Or...
You just scroll over. It's where the red stuff is.
A little bit up. There you go.
There is-
Open house display boards that illustrate the concepts. Pretty much exactly what you were asking for, Councilmember Shepherd.
And at what point does this happen?
It's going to happen. What you want it in the first month, the fourth month? What's the concern?
Well, before they start designing, or just to illustrate to the community what's happening.
Jeff?
Yeah, there's a process that we follow. It's laid out pretty carefully in the scope. If the council member wants to understand the process, simply look at the scope. It's laid out in chronological order so that we have several things to do as far as gathering information, looking at what we have, looking at alternatives and finding what's available to us. And then we present it to the community. So, we have to do a bunch of work before we just go get input from the community. Otherwise, it's kind of wasting everybody's time. So there's a process to this that's well worn, and we're just following that process. And
I guess what I would like to hear is that the community will be able to have input before things are too far along for them to be heard.
Yes, I think we've said yes to that question about 10 times. Yes.
It is task 3, which occurs before the task 4 design work begins.
Okay.
and alternative selection. If you look at the entire scope, you'll be able to see the order Jeff was talking about.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, I think Councilmember Sharp will be very pleased when she gets into it. I know I was, but in any event, I would like to call a question.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to call the question. Again, this will require a supermajority. So we have a 6 tonight. I guess that would be 4. All those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. All right, question has been called. No further debate. We're going to the vote with the amendment as stated by Councilmember Holloway. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. All right, moving on to Agenda Bill 21059, Local Agency Andy Professional Services Negotiated Hourly Rate Consultant. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me move on. Oh, any other report for First Committee?
I don't. I think that's it.
All right. I just thought it'd be fun to debate that all over again.
No.
Community Development Committee, any report?
Actually, we wanted to talk about the hawk signal at Fisher.
Did you want to say something about that? Oh, okay. Go
No
ahead.
report.
All right, Finance Administration Committee, Agenda Bill 21060, Resolution 1590, requesting a voters pamphlet and appointing committees to prepare arguments, advocating the approval and rejection respectively of an election to be held on November 2nd, 2021. This is for introduction tonight and will be for action tonight. And
The Snoqualmie City Council has adopted ordinance number 1251, calling for submission of a ballot measure approving a sales and use tax.
for Councilmember Review, if I could interrupt you, it's just a point of order. You have submitted your name to be on the pro committee. And so I think in order, you would probably be in favor of recusing yourself of having anything to do with the bill, including reading it in. Does that make sense? So perhaps you could defer to another member of the community to read that?
I don't know. If I recuse myself, I will leave the meeting. Please let me know when I should return.
Let's refer to the city attorney on this issue, or just make sure. I just want to make sure that we don't do anything that could be criticized later.
Agreed.
Bob, could you weigh in?
Yeah, it would be appropriate for the mayor pro tem to recuse himself and not participate in the conversation once the item is called, if he's going to be considered.
Please let me know when I should come back. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Jim,
Help me understand why.
You don't need to leave the meeting. You just can't participate in this agenda bill nor vote on it.
Okay, is it Attorney Sturbank? Recusal doesn't require me to leave?
Some of the case law indicates that that it's not sufficient to simply recuse, but the person has to leave the meeting because in some of those cases, the recusing decision maker sat in the audience, made faces, gave instructions, attempted to participate from the cheap seat. So it's,
That definitely means Jim should leave.
So Bob, in this case, would it be sufficient? Well, no, hang on, Jim, because he can listen to the recording of the meeting and video afterwards, so it doesn't make any difference to remove that influence that you're speaking about. If he just turned off his video and audio, I think that would cure it and effectively remove him from the being visibly present. Would that suffice, Bob?
that is another way to do it. The cleanest way is simply to leave the meeting.
Maybe I'll leave it to you. What would you like?
I'll leave it because it's very quick to come back. I'll be at a hair's trigger when you guys are ready for me. Bye-bye.
I will text you when we're done.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Council, if I could have another member of the F&A committee, please read this agenda bill in.
Catherine, you want me to do it?
Sure.
All right. The Snoqualmie City Council has adopted ordinance 1251 calling for submission of a ballot measure approving a sales and use sales and use tax 0.2% to be used to pay for transportation improvements included in the city's adopted 6-year transportation improvement plan and or utility capital improvement plan. When a unit of local government has submitted a ballot measure for inclusion in a voter's pamphlet, RCW 29A.32.2080 requires the legislative authority of the local government to formally appoint members to committees to prepare arguments advocating voters' approval and rejection respectively of the ballot measure. The city issued a press release calling for applicants, and the proposed resolution provides for the appointment of 3 members to a committee advocating approval and 3 members to a committee advocating rejection of a ballot measure contained in ordinance 1251. Move to adopt resolution 1590, requesting a voter's pamphlet and appointing committees to prepare arguments advocating the approval and rejection respectively, and an election to be held on November 2nd, 2021, and authorize the mayor to sign. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 21059 as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? I don't see anyone raising their hand, so we'll go to council discussion and questions. Councilmember Jeans, go ahead.
There was discussion a couple of weeks ago when this first came up that there may not be enough time to get the word out so that they could create committees for and against. But I see the materials that has been submitted identifies that there is a pro and con committee and identifies the people on the committee. So I have no concerns. I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Or Councilmember Jeans. Bob Sturbank, I assume that the approval of this agenda bill will also approve the lists that have been submitted as part of the agenda bill of those names for both the pro and the con committees?
The resolution attaches the list, Mayor, and says and indicates that those are the names that will be forwarded to the county.
Great, thank you. Just to be clear. All right, any other questions or comments, council? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you, council. Give me 2 seconds.
Can we vote on paging, Jim?
Is that a motion?
No.
Oh, it's too late. I already sent come back. All right, should be, well, let's hold off until he joins back. Someone let me know.
So he really wasn't allowed to vote on that?
That's correct.
Because he might be persuasive, or I don't understand that.
Well, no, because
Once he volunteered to be on one of the committees, he needed to recuse.
so it's a conflict of interest when you're voting to approve yourself to be on a committee.
Oh, because we were approving yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we thought it was just cleanest to make sure he just recused himself.
Was it bad that he voted for himself to be on council?
Did
We
he?
don't know that he did that.
It's true.
I did vote in the last election. I can't reveal who I voted for, but I did vote in that election.
Yeah, could have been the deciding vote. Well, I guess.
Wow.
It was that close.
I withdraw this.
Digress.
All right. Where were we? By the way, Councilmember Mayhew, thank you for stepping up, or Mr. Mayhew, citizen, for stepping up on the pro committee. The motion was approved and you are now on the pro committee. So thank you. All right, moving on to we need a report for Finance Administration Committee.
No further report.
Public Safety Committee need a report.
The police chief was prepared to give a presentation to the committee about legislative matters that may impact our police department. And Sean Sunwell made a very creative suggestion. Why do it twice? Why hear the report now when it's something that certainly the council would want to hear? So we just asked him to make a presentation at this council meeting. So in essence, I'm asking the chief to present the report that he was going to present a week ago.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Bob, or Councilmember Jeans. So the presentation from the chief might kind of take place in two components. We're anticipating that some of the components might have legal repercussions to them. So if the council asks questions that we feel might be of a legal nature that would be better in executive session, we'll push those into an executive session. So it might be bifurcated where part of it is executive session, everything else that wouldn't be relevant to executive session will be out in open session. So
just point of order, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
With that in mind, does it make sense to move it to the bottom?
Well, we essentially are at the bottom now, unless you want to clear up a couple of the other items before that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that first, because then you're right. That would be a nice smooth transition. So we have a few items in the committee of the whole. And I'm sorry, it's going to be a long 8 o'clock dawn now.
I don't know how you live with that clock.
I usually don't live 5 feet from the grandfather clock. It's in the dining room. That's where I've been kicked out to. Anyway, we do have several items that I would turn over to the Mayor Pro Tem to address under Committee of the Whole. And then, as you stated, Councilmember Sunwall, I think it would be good to come back to that as the last item, so I could smoothly transition to the executive session, along with one other item in executive session too. So let's do that if there's no objection, and then we'll come back to that. All right, so Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to go ahead and there were some assignments, appearance of fairness issues you wanted to address? And
Yeah. Under council committee appointments, Mayor, if I could just ask you or maybe the city administrator, the ethics hearing examiner has issued findings and a letter of censure. Have those been published yet on the city website, or are those available to the public yet?
I will defer to Mark Carrera.
I am not sure of that question, but we will do that first thing tomorrow if they're not.
You jumped to my second question was, if not, will they be? Sounds like they will. Okay.
They were distributed to the Valley Record, inquired about them, the Living Snoqualmie. So it was put out as a general press release. But I don't know that will have to confirm if it was posted on the city's website. Joan would usually take care of that. And of course, she's not full-time right now. So
Yeah, I didn't see a press release on it. That was one of my questions is, are there going to be the same public notification that we did following the last hearing, ethics hearing outcome?
Mark,
if not, perhaps we could.
This is Joan. I'd be happy to do so at Bob Sturbink's recommendation.
All right.
Actually, I think what he's saying is it's not really Bob's recommendation.
Yeah, we will take care of it. There's a little bit of confusion on this because the Valley Record got it before we had a chance to put out the press release. But point well taken, we should follow the same process that we have used with previous ethics events in the community.
Yes. All right, and similar to what I think happened previously, not only the findings, there was a letter of censure, but also there was a complaint with some supporting evidence. I think for folks to understand it, all of those items ought to be public, and I believe that's what we did last time we had an ethics matter, ethics hearing.
And a link to the hearing itself.
Great, so we'll leave that with you then.
And all of the response.
Yes, I think that would be very helpful, Mr. Carrera. Just that I think there was a complaint, and then I think there was some additional filings or pleadings that the hearing examiner asked for. So those, as well as you correctly pointed out, a link to the audio of the hearing itself.
So when the city accepted the complaint and the ethics and the council approved the ethics exam and so forth, that came to the attention of Living Snoqualmie, Valley Record, and others. And they requested of us that when the decision was made to please be apprised of that. That's why, unlike a typical press release, we just released that information immediately to them as requested.
Oh yeah, not criticizing at all, Mayor. I just think to have a fulsome record, we ought to make that all available so that folks have access to it. I've seen some noise to the effect in the community that folks are a little bit confused and would like to have the ability to see all the information. It seems like that's all the parties would want that to be the case.
We will, as Mark said, we'll take care of that. We'll address it tomorrow morning.
All right. The hearing or the ethics examiner completed his work, and on July 19th, 2021, issued a letter of censure which states, quote, "Councilmember Shepherd has committed multiple violations of the City of Snoqualmie's Code of Ethics." Goes on to say, "Councilmember Shepherd is hereby censured for her multiple violations of the city's ethics code, for her poor judgment in failing to protect confidential information, and for discharging the due process rights of project applicants by failing to act in an open, transparent, and impartial manner." This July 19th letter of censure is in addition to a letter of censure issued a year ago or so on August 10th of 2020 by this city council, in which the council censured Councilmember Shepherd for, quote, making representations in disregard of the truth of such representations, which is contrary to the requirements of the Snoqualmie Code of Ethics. And quote, the Snoqualmie City Council does hereby censure City Council Member Margaret Peggy Shepherd for making the false representations. So as Mayor Pro Tem of the council, and at the request of several council members, I am tonight proposing that in response to her failure to protect the city and the due process rights of applicants, that Council Member Shepherd be removed from her City Council committee assignments. Accordingly, I appoint Council Member Brian Holloway to the Public Safety Committee in place of Council Member Shepherd.
I'm sorry, Councilor May, I missed if that was in the form of a motion.
No, that's an appointment that I make under our council rules of procedure. It is subject to council confirmation.
All right, yeah, okay, so less than a motion than a statement looking for confirmation from the council. Is there any, I'm sorry, we don't do this very often, just knock the rust off my memory. Is there any discussion or deliberations that you're inviting Council or Mayor Pro Tem, or you just go to a vote?
Yes, there would be council member debate is appropriate. I do not believe that our council rules of procedure call for public comment on this, though.
All right, thank you. So at this time, if there are any council comment or questions, discussion. Councilor Summer.
Yeah, so does this include liaison appointments?
So the current status is that in response to the August 2020 letter of censure, the council, the council acted and removed Council Member Shepherd from all liaison roles. And so her only remaining role was on a committee, the Public Safety Committee, which is what I've made an appointment in regard to tonight.
Thank you for clarifying.
Councilor Jeans.
I'm chair of the Public Safety Committee. And although I think there is merit to what the council member is suggesting, I am opposed to this action. Councilmember Shepherd attends religiously this committee meeting. She has a lot of times been in the minority. She's disagreeable with what others have said, but that's the job of a council member. She's exercised those things, I think, well with the committee, and so I see no reason to take this action.
All right, Councilor Summerall, you still have your hand up?
Sorry.
All right, I don't see any other hands. All right, so if there's no further discussion or questions, all those in favor of confirming as stated by the Mayor Pro Tem, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
No.
Okay, if my count is correct, it's approved by 4-2. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
So, fellow council members, as you all know, the mill site matter has been before the city for some time now. And the city attorney has periodically reminded us of this and reiterated our legal responsibilities for quasi-judicial matters. In the ethics hearing examiner censure, he stated, quote, the mill site development application remains under review by the city. Councilmember Shepherd's statements to the Department of Ecology and her conduct in inserting herself into the SEPA review process demonstrates that she has taken a position on this matter and is incapable of providing independence of judgment with respect to any decisions on this application that might come before the City Council. Because of the importance of this to council procedures and to potential legal liability of the city towards applicants, I am asking the city attorney to again go over our responsibilities and request any relevant information from each of us in this regard. Mr. Sturbank, are you prepared to do that?
Certainly. Council will recall that when matters are pending, and I should say, we do have an executive session on the agenda for later this evening to talk about potential litigation. And so I think the questions have some bearing on the appropriateness of participation in that or not upcoming. So typically I ask council members whether a series of questions about whether they've engaged in ex parte contacts, had communications that they wish to disclose, whether they have any interest in the proposal, and so on. Mayor Pro Tem, are you asking that I go through each of those questions right now, or just generally whether or not council members believe that they can be fair and impartial and want to recuse themselves or not?
Well, perhaps we could, it depends, I think each council member, it depends whether council members feel familiar enough with those requirements. Perhaps we could find out if any council members would like you to go through the specifics. But yeah, I think mainly this is an opportunity for any of us who have any matters that we need to disclose, potentially to recuse ourselves, to do so now.
Councilor Summo.
I would suggest that recusal, I don't know what we'd recuse ourselves from because there's nothing before us. I would like a refresher course on what's not okay. Whether we have an accounting of that at this point. Again, there's nothing before us, so I don't know what I would recuse myself from.
Mr. Sturbank, could you take us through that?
Certainly. And some of this I think is appropriate for executive session conversation. And of course, that begs the question, if there are members who should recuse themselves, then they would not participate in the executive session. But broadly speaking, the limitations on participation in a quasi-judicial matter kick in when the matter is pending. In this case, the application for a planned commercial industrial plan is the application that Snoqualmie Mill Ventures filed. When they filed their application, that matter was pending. The decision maker on the application is the council. There is an opportunity for either, depending on the procedural wrinkles, a recommendation from either a hearing examiner or the planning commission. But the decision maker is the council. And so once the application was filed, the application is pending. And so even though there's not a hearing or a proceeding that the council is holding at the moment, the application is pending just based on the fact that it's been filed. So that would be, I think, get to Councilmember Sunwell's question about what's happened.
And so, well, maybe Mr. Sturbank, if you could clarify, if it's pending with the city, which you just explained, does that mean the appearance of fairness doctrine is now in effect, which is, I believe, what you're telling us?
It would be, as well as the requirement that participants in that not have actual, aside from the statutory parts of that doctrine, the requirement that a person be impartial and not have actual bias or unable to participate fairly. Those are also aspects that kick in when a matter is pending.
Can we please review that doctrine?
Certainly, I can go over each of the pieces.
Do you want to do that tonight, or do you want to schedule a 20 or half hour in a future council meeting in the next month or so? Or a roundtable?
Mayor, you're in the council's pleasure. It does take a little bit of time.
The question wasn't to you, Bob. The question was to
all right, excuse me.
Of the mayor pro tem or the council in general.
Depends how long the executive session is going to go. We're sitting at 8:15. We've been going for 2 hours and a quarter.
Yeah, Mayor, the reason I brought this forward in this manner is we've just received, since our last council meeting, so this is timely, we've received notification from the hearing examiner, including findings that one of us has an issue. And so there's appropriate actions that we can take if we have an issue individually. And so the idea was to find out if that action would be taken. The hearing examiner did suggest an action that the council would need to take if individuals did not do what they're required to do. So the purpose here is to give the opportunity for council members to take the action that they would be required to under the law. And if they didn't take that action, then the hearing examiner's findings would then place a duty on the council.
I understand. Okay, now that's clear to me. Councilmember Holloway.
Well, but to be specific, the matter, it currently isn't before the council, and the recommendation from the hearing examiner is if does not recuse herself from participation in the matter, the city council should adopt a resolution excluding her from doing so. I think that is action that if we need to, we can take at time of matter before the council and at time where we would normally recuse ourselves.
But that will be happening tonight in executive session.
Okay.
Good point. Let's proceed.
So you'd like the city attorney to proceed?
I don't want Jim to talk anymore.
No, but I think it would be good to go over the matter of quasi judicial, but I think it's more than a 5-minute conversation, and Bob ought to lead us through a pretty in-depth discussion of it.
Well, let's be honest. We're not here so we can all 7 of us can be educated on what we can and can't say. There's a finding that one has breached those, and I think we need to jump right to what are her options, and if that option is not taken, what are ours?
The option for
Because I think the timeliness issue that Councilor Mayhew was speaking to is, according to the attorney, the definition of pending is it was pending once they submitted the project, period. It's not once the council actually takes it up in the room for deliberations when the EIS comes back. It's been pending for some months now. Is that accurate, Bob? And in which case, the Mayor Pro Tem is saying that we need to take action immediately, since it's still a pending project. Or did I get that wrong, Bob?
I think you described it accurately, Mayor.
Okay, so to Councilmember Sunwall's point, though, I don't know that the entire council needs another class on appearance of fairness. They've had that training several times. I think he's saying, let's just cut to the chase and pose the question to Councilmember Shepherd. Is it your intention, knowing the ethics officer's finding or decision to recuse yourself? Because in his assessment, you've compromised yourself, irreparably compromised yourself, and would highly recommend you be recused. And if you did not recuse, then he recommends the council take action to remove you from the deliberations on that project.
Am I allowed to speak now?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Shepherd. Well, you never, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand was up. Go ahead.
Okay. So normally we do this when we go into the judicial sessions, is when we're polled to find out if we've had any ex parte communication. And, the opinion that talking to the Department of Ecology is as an opponent for this development is, different people. It seems like only in Snoqualmie do people find that to be an opponent. However,
Objection, not material to the matter tonight.
I'm sorry, but it is material. What else would be material? Are you guys going to have no conversation about what's
The
going
hearing
on?
examiner found you incapable of being impartial on the matter. The facts leading up to that decision are not material for the discussion tonight.
I'm sorry, but I think that it's what I'm willing to talk about.
Councilor Shepherd, I'll give you a little latitude. Continue, please.
All right. So the RCW says that if you have talked to someone who might be perceived as being an opponent or a proponent of a project, that you can disclose that when you start your hearings. And that's when I will be discussing that. And we're not there yet. And even though, yes, we have already started when the application was submitted, It may be during the pendency period, but we do have the right to bring that to the first when we start discussing the project. So that's when I'm willing to do that. But the thing that I don't understand is you all seem to have had a conversation about what's coming up in an executive session that I have no idea what you've discussed. So I'm very much out of the loop.
Yeah, I think the concern is you're continuing to do independent research pertaining to the mill site outside of the record. It's pending, so.
You know what I've done.
So help me understand, we're here to either, she has the choice of recusing herself now, or if she chooses not to, which I assume will be her choice, then we have options, actions we can take ahead of the executive session, at which point sounds like, news to me, but sounds like we'll be discussing items that she should be recused from if that's what we feel.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, so I'm not an attorney, so the attorney should clarify this, but the notion that the problem here is an ex parte communication is completely at odds with what the hearing examiner found. That is not the problem. That is a problem, but a disclosure can often cure that. But the problem here is the appearance of fairness doctrine in the state of Washington requires that there be an appearance of fairness. We are now on notice that our city's decision makers they have violated the appearance of fairness. If our council member who's involved, or alternately as the rest of the council, do not act in that regard, then the applicant's rights are violated, and it will be an ongoing violation. And I think we are now on notice of this as a council, and I think we must act to protect the city, to protect the applicant, and to protect the residents for the due process requirements under state law.
All right, so again, so we don't spend another hour on this, Councilmember Shepherd, it seems clear that you're not in a place that you're even entertaining the thought of recusing yourself from the pending project. Correct?
Well, I would like to say one last comment. And that is, regardless of how I feel, you all can decide to keep me from being part of the decision-making process. And I don't know why that has to go into an executive session.
Mayor, that's not what the executive session is about. But in any regard, the purpose tonight was to provide an opportunity for Council Member Shepherd to recuse, because if she did so, the council doesn't need to take any further action. She's acted appropriately based on the finding of the hearing examiner. If we don't see a recusal tonight, then I think it's incumbent on us as a council to then determine what our next steps need to be to protect the city, protect the applicant, to protect the residents. So we just needed to provide that opportunity, find out yes or no, is she recusing?
Councilmember James.
So I'm wondering whether us council members are contemplating whether Council Member Shepherd should be excluded from all executive sessions. And I probably don't agree with that. I don't think that that's appropriate. But if it turns out that the executive session, either this evening or at some other time, is on the subject of the mill site, then I think we should vote to exclude her from that deliberation. So I'm not sure what Jim is proposing, because it seems like he knows what's on the agenda in executive session, and I don't. But those are my comments.
Yeah, the executive session, frankly, is irrelevant with the question that's really to the heart of what the mayor pro tem is saying now. All he's doing right now as part of a procedural issue is providing an opportunity to ask Councilmember Shepherd, given the finding of the ethics officer, are you prepared to recuse yourself from the pending issue of the mill site? Or are you intending to continue your involvement as a council member?
That's
Yes.
the only question I'm raising, Mayor. You are correct.
Yes or no? Councilmember Shepherd, yes or no?
I'm sorry, but yes or no doesn't, it makes a statement, regardless of what I say. I am a council member and I feel that I've done nothing that would be harmful to the applicant's project. So I do not see it as you do, as far as the Department of Ecology being an opponent to a project. And I feel that this is premature. It's not the normal process.
Yeah, there's.
This is really easy. Are you going to recuse yourself tonight or not? Yes or no? It's easy.
No.
Good. Now we can move on.
I think it's pretty clear there. That's all we're looking for.
Okay.
So we can continue.
Okay.
With that, Mayor Pro Tem, were there any other items that we?
No other items for me. I think you were going to give an update on COVID-19, and then we have the police chief, I think, with another matter.
I knew the COVID-19 is the one I was missing. I was trying to jog my memory. I was going to ask Nicole. So Mark was going to give a little quick COVID-19 update. I'm pleased to report, I just checked the vaccination records for 98065, and we are now at 79.1% as of today, and full vaccination and 84.7% at least the first dose. Now here's the interesting wrinkle. I've been enviously looking at some of the other communities like Sammamish that are in excess of 94%. We are actually there with most of our population. The one age group, the 20 to 29 age group is at about 53%, and the 30 to 39 is at about 48% or 47%. Everybody else is at about 95% of all other age groups in the city of Snoqualmie. So we got to kind of put the press on those 20 to 39-year-olds. That's sort of an interesting little quirk in our population, a demographic set here on who's participating in that. So anyway, I thought that would be an interesting, some interesting metrics for you to have. Mark, go ahead. I'll turn it over to you for any other updates on COVID issues.
Certainly, yeah, just really quick. Staff returned back to working part of the time at City Hall back at the beginning of the month. And then in the middle of the month, we opened up City Hall from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the morning. So the residents have access to City Hall. We've also placed a kiosk out in the lobby so that members can come in and do a lot of their business from the kiosk. And if they can't complete the business or they have any questions, there's a doorbell there they can ring and staff can come out and help them. The bigger piece of this is we are now moving forward with making plans for having council return to either in person or in a hybrid format. So we're targeting the first meeting in August 9th for that meeting. And we'll be working with IT to work through some of the IT related issues, but that is our plan. It'll be an in-person meeting with a hybrid option. Residents can also either call in or submit written comments that can be submitted to the record. And we'll also have social distancing and space available inside the council chambers. So masks will be required for all unvaccinated or all residents that we don't ask for their vaccination status. Similarly, masks are required in City Hall as well. So, and then lastly, we are looking for incentives and looking at other options to increase the number of our employees' vaccination rate. We're falling behind what the community is, and we're going to be discussing that tomorrow at our staff meeting. And I can take any questions if anybody has them.
Any questions, council? All right, great. I think that's the last item we had before we can move on to the, go ahead, Councilman Ross.
So you mentioned, so there's a percentage of employees that are not vaccinated. And so those, then they are wearing masks as they are working at City Hall, or are they not at City Hall?
So no, that is correct. We have a mask mandates that is out. It's a directive from the Office of the City Administrator that requires staff to wear masks. There are some exceptions to that. If they are working alone, then they don't have to wear that, or if they have space, they have an office space, or they're in their office area that they're working in normally. But if they're out and about and if they are unvaccinated, they're required to wear a mask. And then similarly, they should be following local businesses. If they have a sign on their door that says masks are required, then staff should be wearing masks in there as well.
Yeah, and you may have noted in the news today, there's several municipalities and jurisdictions, governments around the country that are starting to implement a policy of you either must be vaccinated, or if not, get a weekly COVID testing. Perhaps as an incentive to make that a little more pleasant. And I'm happy to go there. I find it to be a bit embarrassing that our rates are far below the community we serve. So we'll be discussing ways to try to turn the ship on that a bit. All right, if there's nothing else, Councilmember Mayhew, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to ask Mr. Carrera just a quick follow-up question. And that policy that you just enumerated, that applies to our police and fire as well, I take it?
That is correct. Police and fire, all departments, all essential and non-essential staff.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. I think I had heard some limited question in the community when they saw some of our public safety officers not wearing a mask. And so I will feel confident reassuring them that if they're not wearing a mask, that tells you they're vaccinated, because otherwise policy would have them wearing a mask. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
All right, so with that, I think we've covered all the other points, and we'll turn to the police chief to start giving an update on, again, the legislative issues. We're inevitably going to be going past 9 o'clock, council. I think the chief was initially requesting about 45 minutes or 30 to 45 minutes, plus some other executive session items. So just
Mayor, I'm going to be significantly less than that. I've kind of briefed some of the stuff out. So just
okay.
In respect to everybody's time, I'll be brief.
Go ahead, Chief.
Kevin, are you able to share the screen of my PowerPoint?
We can have Brennan share that screen, yes.
Thank you. So if you can go to the start of the PowerPoint. While he's going to the start of the PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and begin with, I'm sure that you have, well, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come to you about some of the legislation that was passed recently and signed by Governor Inslee on May 18th. That really impacted what law enforcement looks like and how we're going to be acting in the future, if you will, and it may change some of the things that we do. Overall, it's not as bad as if you've been watching the media. There's been a lot of stuff in our local media and also nationally regarding some of the police reform bills that were passed. I've been reviewing it, attending many meetings, discussions, and so forth. And though there are some tactics, if you will, that are changing, I think that it's not going to change how we do business as far as no call too small. We still have a job to do. We still have expectations to this community and to the people we serve. And that's how we're going to move forward. So I'm going to focus primarily on 3 legislative bills: HB 1054, which deals with police tactics; HB 1310, which deals with the use of force; SB 5476, it's called the Blake decision, and it's the response by the legislature to the Washington court regarding State versus Blake. And then I'll touch on a couple others. So we'll start with HB 1054, and this is the police tactics. And many of the areas that were addressed, if you recall back last year when some of the demonstrations were going on, there was discussion about the 8 can't wait. And many of these items that are in this bill were addressed in that 8 can't wait, including chokeholds, neck restraints, no-knock warrants, de-escalation requirements, and so forth. 1054 deals with those. There prohibits any chokeholds. As you remember, we in our policy do not allow that, and we prohibit that. Prohibits no-knock warrants. We do not do no-knock warrants as well. We haven't done those for many, many years. One of the areas that was addressed in 1054 was military equipment, and they gave specific description of what that means. Obviously, we have a, if you want to call it MRAP, we call it MAX, that appears to be military equipment. It is military equipment, but under the definition, to have to return that item would have to be armed, and our vehicle is not armed. It is a truly non-offensive vehicle in the manner that we use it. We use it is a protection for officers and citizens to, depending on how it's used. So it's not a military equipment, which would require it to be returned. We do have about 6 rifles that we are going to return by the date required that are considered military equipment that we obtained from the military. That's the only equipment that we have within our police department that is described under military equipment. Again, police officers have to be properly identified by either their ID number on their badge or their name on their uniform. We have both. So we've complied with that restriction. We also have in our policy the restriction of firing a weapon at a moving vehicle. We have that in our current policy that it's prohibited. The only time that you can use that is if it's an imminent threat to your safety or the safety of another. In other words, they're using that vehicle as a weapon against somebody. That would be the only time that you could use that by firing at that vehicle. One of the biggest issues in this bill was that's going to change how we do things is vehicle pursuits. Vehicle pursuits have been restricted except for under very, very limited circumstances on serious or violent felonies or crimes. And it requires what they call probable cause. And we'll get into that in the next session. But probable cause is the amount of information that it takes to make an arrest. And so there's 2 different levels that we'll go over regarding vehicle pursuits. So vehicle pursuits, as an example, if we pull behind somebody and they just stole items out of Bartels and we initiate a traffic stop and that vehicle takes off and tries to elude us, we cannot chase that vehicle. Next, if you could go to the next slide.
Sumwall, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2 quick questions on the back slide. My question is, and maybe we don't in this community, at least I hope not. When police are encountering opponents, I'll call them, that have military equipment and you don't, is that a concern? First of all, is my first question. And second of all, on this limited vehicle pursuits, I guess theoretically anybody who's going to get pulled over for a speeding ticket could just keep going, right?
That's very, very tough for police chief to say that, but the law is specific on when we can pursue and when we can't. And so
Chief, before you answer, perhaps that's an item we would prefer in an executive session.
Okay.
I apologize for the question. I should have thought that through more.
So if you could
The first question, though, I'd love an answer to.
Yeah, if your question is regarding if individuals have, if you will, military equipment and we do not, it's the same situation as we have right now. The restrictions that were put in place by this law have not restricted what we currently do. So I feel what we have currently is sufficient for our needs here in this community.
Thank you.
If you could go to the next page, please. Or not.
The next page?
The next slide.
Slide 7. There we go. Oh, wait. They're all number 6.
Yeah, I'm not going to pages. It should be the top, should be key definitions.
There we go.
So I mentioned earlier about probable cause and reasonable suspicion. And I'll be pretty basic on this. These are kind of the technical things that law enforcement really abide by, because it really dictates when we can make an arrest, when we can detain somebody. And so detention, if somebody say steals something out of Bartels again, and we detain them because we saw them say running out of the business and they have a handful of items loosely in their arms and they're running from the business, that may give us reasonable suspicion that maybe a crime has occurred and they may be responsible for it. And then the level for an arrest is if that person runs out of Bartels and an employee is following that person in the same set of circumstances and points at him and says, that person just stole from this store, that would rise it to the level of probable cause. So to be real simple, reasonable suspicion says they may have committed a crime, and probable cause says that they are the person that committed that crime based on the facts that you know. So that's the difference. And in this legislation, they really restricted reasonable suspicion because we cannot use, as we'll find out in the next bill, any type of force to restrict their movement, to detain them, to arrest them based on reasonable suspicion. So if we don't have that, they can turn around and say, I'm not stopping, I don't have to stop, I'm leaving, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Probable cause, we have to get probable cause. Now, what's that going to do to us? We can change the way we do things. We just have to be better at what we do, obtaining information. And I think that we're already doing a lot of those things. Next slide. It's HB 1310, HB 1310. It should be the heading. It's back. There it is. Thank you. This is basically use of force, and this is changing how we do things when I'm talking about on reasonable suspicion and probable cause. There was a lot of discussion on between police professionals, police chiefs, sheriffs, and the people in the community that are interested about this. What does this mean? You've probably seen in the media where a lot of department heads, chiefs, have basically said, we're not going to respond anymore to anything that's not criminal in nature. In other words, if there's a homeless issue or if somebody's in a crisis, mental health crisis, but not committing any crimes, there are many directives in this state that they're saying, we're not going to respond to that. And I'll tell you, that's where I was struggling with, because I still believe that we have a duty and a responsibility to respond to those to see if we can find a solution. The key there is that we do not use force to detain that person unless we have probable cause for an arrest. So if it's somebody that is in a crisis and they're running around in the neighborhood and then somebody in the neighborhood calls us and said there's somebody that's acting strange, they're yelling and screaming, they may be undressing, there's not a whole lot we can do except for respond and try and find a solution in a coordinated effort with fire, with maybe mental health experts to find a solution to solve that issue without using force. Now, of course, if they commit a crime in our presence while we're there, we can effect an arrest in that case. And if we need to, hopefully not, we can use force in that instance. What it does do is this bill creates a duty of care. And I think we've always done that. We look for every avenue and we exhaust every opportunity to de-escalate that situation so we do not use force. And that's what this bill creates. I think many departments already complied with this. This isn't going to really change how we do things because we spend a lot of time on doing other tactics instead of using force. You can go to the next slide. Again, it's HB 1310. I'm going to go ahead and go over this. This is just some requirements that are reporting requirements and policy requirements that the AG's office has to provide us by July 1st, 2022. So if we can go to the next slide. It should just say scenarios. So I think I talked a little bit about the theft issue, about whether we can stop them or if we can use force. The other issue that I wanted to talk about is
point of order. Point of order. Sorry to interrupt, Chief. I'm concerned that we're going down the path that I sort of started. And I'm just wondering if this is an executive session conversation because I see where this is going.
I'll move on.
I mean, I'm only one voice, but
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, my concern is you basically give a description for all the things people can get away from in a public session. I'm not sure that we want to go
Well,
there.
you know, I'll tell you, I was worried about that, but if you watch any of the news right now, it's all over it. We don't have
right.
to do it here.
Chief, though, what I'm trying to prevent, like, I made the mistake of watching the news a lot this last week, and California is a dumpster fire. I mean, in a lot of ways, but people walking out of stores with crap and nothing, there's no consequence. And I just don't know that we want to discuss in open session how we can become like them.
Yeah, I'm good with that. At the end, I'll talk about how we move forward, but yeah, I agree. If we, well, you know, then we may have to, the next section we probably need to do in executive session as well, the HB 5476.
Yeah. Okay.
We probably need to do that. We can surely move on to the slide that says others. Bill 5051, officer decertification. That basically gives CJTC, which is our police academy, if you will, the ability to decertify or decommission an officer for behavior that they feel is so egregious that they should not be commissioned as a law enforcement officer in this state. That is a new decertification or enhances their ability to do that. And it's at their discretion how that goes. We have to notify them, and then they have the discretion whether or not they investigate it and what type of discipline, decertification, or suspension that they feel is needed. The next one is the Office of Independent Investigations. It implemented out of the AG's office, an Office of Independent Investigations on use of force issues. So if there's a use of force issue by a department, they have to report it. And then the AG's office, and they're developing this committee right now, has the ability to either investigate that or not. It's solely under their discretion whether or not they want to investigate that use of force. Typically, my understanding is it's going to be where there's use of deadly force in which somebody was either killed or not, or seriously injured in that use of force. And then the last thing we, again, already do, 5066, duty intervene. We already have that in our policy. If an officer sees excessive force being used, it's inappropriate, then obviously they have a duty to intervene, and they have a duty to report that excessive force. And that's in Bill 5066. I started talking about whether or not we may have to have body cameras in the future. Bill 1223 may bring that discussion up of whether or not we need body cameras. It's requiring custodial interrogations to be recorded, and there's different levels for adults and juveniles in that, but it doesn't specifically say that body cameras are required. But in order to fully comply with 1223, body cameras is probably the best way to comply with those restrictions on that. They have to be recorded to any type of interrogation with the juvenile, and any type of interrogation after an arrest of an adult who committed a felony. So it really does kind of bring up this discussion whether or not we need to have body cameras or not. And the last slide I'll go over is the into the future. Talk about levels of service, and I'm not sure if we want to get into this now or in executive session, but real briefly, I talked about levels of service. This is all about levels of service. My direction to the officers is we're not going to change what we do as far as responding to calls. We will still respond to all calls for service at this time. We may change our tactics when we arrive at the call, but we will continue to be no call too small. I think if somebody calls us and they need our assistance, they need our help, we're going to respond to that. I think I also need to educate the community on the expectations that are based on these new laws that there may be times when we arrive and we leave without any type of action being taken that they think was maybe appropriate. And so there needs to be some kind of community education in what we can and cannot do and what these laws may have changed. And I put redefine to protect and serve, and that's not even real. We're not going to redefine to protect and serve. We're going to still protect and serve. That's our mission. That's who we are, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And so that ends my my presentation as far as in this format.
Great, thank you, Chief. Councilmember Sunwell, go ahead.
I know, Chief, you're going to say, you know, we got this. This isn't a big deal, but your job has gotten increasingly difficult, and I honor what you guys do. It was hard 30 years ago, and it's infinitely harder now. And I really appreciate what you guys and gals do to protect our community, and I thank you for that.
You're
Yeah, I think
welcome. It's an honor to serve.
one thing the chief didn't mention, which I think is one of the more disturbing impacts of some of these changes, is the almost the immediate destruction of our, what I thought was a very valuable and new canine program. It's part of why Officer John Fishbeck left and went to Arizona out of the Washington State. And that program pretty much is going quickly by the wayside or following him. And I don't know.
So the canine program is being removed?
That was going to be addressed in executive session based on that once that I bypassed.
Okay, let's save it for that then.
I'm sure Richard Sherman would have liked to have that happen 2 weeks ago.
All right, thank you. With that, I don't think we have any other, unless there's, Nicole, any other events or announcements or anyone else that you can think of before we move into executive session? Okay, I don't hear any. All right, so hearing nothing else, then at this time, we're going to go into executive session.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, point of order. Do we need to extend the meeting?
Usually it's past 10 o'clock.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't need to do that. So anyway, at this time, the council will go into executive session regarding potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, section I and lowercase III. I will ask Bob Sturbank, Mark Carrera, and Chief Phipps to attend. I anticipate the executive session will last approximately 30 minutes. For those of you who have joined the Zoom meeting, we will be rejoining the regular meeting at the executive session, so you may continue to be logged in. Now, the council, do you all have the executive session link, or all those that need to go to the executive session?
Yes, it's in our email.
All right, very good. All right, so I'll see everybody in executive.
I will need to get that executive session.
Chief Phipps, I just sent it to you.
Thank you.
Mayor, we will be returning to adjourn, but no action is expected following the executive session.
All right, well, big thank you to Kevin and Brandon and others that have been patiently waiting all this time. Looks like we have a few, or Catherine Ross is in the attendee list, but a couple of members of the public that have been patiently standing by. All right, well, even as an attendee, I'm sure, oh, there we go, we're all set. I don't see a quorum yet. I'm not sure if we can adjourn without a quorum.
There we go.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I don't know if Brian would think it's ethical to adjourn with only 3 here.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, the meeting is adjourned. Go enjoy the rest of your long evening.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night.